Hello everyone. Today is Jupyter Frontends meeting. We're doing this jointly with this Jupyter server and kernels team. Just a reminder, today is the first of the month, so any accessibility topics that someone wants to bring up, we want to make sure those are tackled first. So this is being recorded for the YouTube channel. I think we don't have any accessibility topics currently. Does anybody want to share anything about accessibility that they haven't had a chance to add onto the agenda yet? We don't see anything. Hold up, but maybe we can circle back to any accessibility items that we find on the repo. In the meantime, I'll take a look at that, and in the meantime, I'll pass it on to the first agenda from Jeremy.
Yeah. So I was looking into an extension that already exists outside of JupyterLab, which is called the Quick Open extension. And this is the kind of extensions that is quite useful. So that lets you open files very quickly. Let me share. That will be easier. Yeah. It's actually good that today is also a call of the Jupyter server, because I think it would be there will be a question on how to move forwards with this. So this is the extension in question. I think we already talked about it a while ago. So it's out there. People can install it and use it in JupyterLab. But I was wondering, maybe it could be nice to have it like in core by default, because it's become quite popular in other editors, and I think people kind of expect to have something like this out of the box. So open this PR, and this is what it looks like. So if you do Command Shift P, it opens this box. It's just a command palette. You can search for files, press Enter, opens the file. So it's pretty much just bringing the extension that already exists into core JupyterLab. And yeah, it's not finished yet. I was curious to know like what people think about this before putting more time into that. Like, is it something that we would like to incorporate or not? Especially since there are a couple of questions, I think, that are not answered yet. And one is how do we get the list of files? And I think that was already discussed before in one of the server meetings. Currently, we are lacking an endpoint for Jupyter server to get a full scan of the available files in just one go. So this pull request adds the endpoint that is in the extension, but it's a very simple one. It's just does like a recursive walk of the file system. But surprisingly, it's not that slow, I think. But still, it's very simple. It does the job. But there's probably like a better way to do that, and also a better integration with the actual contents API, because currently it's just an endpoint on the side just to make it work. But I wanted to to open that PR so that we can start discussion. I think the front end part is probably less problematic, but the actual backend part for getting all of this information about files probably needs some discussion, especially since this would also be useful for a tree-based file browser if we manage to get one into JupyterLab as well at some point as an alternative to the current file browser. We would also need something like this for getting information about all of the files. Okay, I just saw that Vidar has raised hand. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to summarize some of the discussion there from the server call. I think it was, we concluded that this can be added in a backwards compatible way, because you would add like a default handler for this that uses the current contents APIs, but you could then add another extension point where other implementers could make more optimized ways of doing it. Like for a file system, right? You just don't go through every directory. You can do a tree walk. You can do the whatever it is that you call so that you get the stats at the same time. I think the conclusion was also that if you're just getting the file names, that is often a lot cheaper than getting the file names and metadata because you have to do stat calls. So if that API had some key about whether or not metadata was needed, maybe which metadata was needed, that can help optimize it. For example, if you're going to an S3 bucket somewhere or not, if you're just getting file names, that is a lot quicker to enumerate, right? Than if you have to go and stat everything.
Yeah. So for that one, I think for that one, it's only the file name, but for the tree-based file browser, it could be more needed. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like if you're trying to make a generic API, that's why I'm saying like it would need to be a key. So I think the conclusion was all of this can be added backwards compatible, but some thought and iterations would probably be needed in the experimentation phase to make sure that we get the flexibility we need.
Okay. What do people think about, like, do you think it would be better, faster, and cleaner to try to do that in Jupyter Server directly, or would it be maybe better to experiment with that in JupyterLab first, or maybe JupyterLab server and see how it goes? And Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, drop some things in the chat. Pretty much anytime that you're doing anything with pathlib or filelib or whatever, it is actually blocking. And walking is incredibly expensive. So those, even though they look async right now, they're actually blocking. So you would definitely want to hide those inside of a run and executor that came back with the thing. And then you can decide, how many threads do you want to use for it? How many, who do you want to run down, whatever. But then all the other stuff that whoever Vidar just said. Yeah, I mean, really, we want chat, or not chat, we want search, right? Like, so making an initial search that the only field that you can search on is the name of the file is great. But back in the day, back in when IBM was investing, in first-party stuff, we had some examples of search, and they used Whoosh, which is pretty limiting or whatever. But if what this was the first minimal form of search, and it had a search provider, which is file contents search provider, and all it knew how to do was tell you the names of the files, that is a totally valid search. That's a great search, right? And so, yeah, thinking about that as a server element with, there is now a API search, and it answers, and then it gets down to it. Well, how do you search for things? Oh God, no! Don't bring in AO files. Oh no. That's all it's doing under the hood is just shelling out, but it brings in a lot of other things, and that's why we ended up using NEIO. So yeah, you could use NEIO it knows things about files, but you're better off owning your own threads. Yeah, so there is /API search. It's got a place in the Open API. It will tell you what it has to search and what those fields are on the thing that it can search, and then you can search for them. And so, you know, if you're asking for things that have file names, it'll give you back file names. And this would just be a single invocation of that. But then also would give us the thing that we've always been missing, which is a big old search box right on the launcher for find the thing that I want. You know, the recently used files, that would be another thing. That would be a quick search kind of thing, and that would probably get boosted because you opened it recently. You probably wanted to open it again, but your workspace crashed or whatever. So yeah, I think it's listing contents is a challenging thing, but if we already think about it as a demo is fast, doing it for real on a big file system in Jupyter Hub or something could be incredibly slow. So how fast do you want them back? Right? Give me a deadline for how quickly things can come back. I'd only want things that come back in under 100 milliseconds. And then the search provider says, I can't get you that, you know. Or if you want to shell out to an LLM to give you some lies, you know, like that would, it's not going to come back in under 200 milliseconds. I think that could be a really great way forward. And the place that I've been looking for this first was for documentation. And so that's a whole other ball of wax on how do you correctly index code-oriented documentation like API docs and things like that. And that answer is still not LSP or DAP or whatever. You know, I don't think there's a great answer for it. But would love to see that brought together with this, if at all possible.
On the search topic, I've been experimenting with it a little bit myself because I have thousands of notebooks at this point, right? And that's like a real problem finding stuff. And what has been really nice for me has been actually loading all of the Python files and like Markdown files and whatever other file extensions in as a notebook. Because then when I use the notebook structure, I have a really nice table for my database. So like basically exploding the rows and now having, you know, the source and the columns and all that kind of stuff. Like the notebook format actually works out as a really good general abstraction for that database layer.
One question, just in a follow-up of what Nick was saying, Jeremy. Do you need, when you do this, do you like get all of the contents like once so that it's fast to search in the client? Or do you like get it regularly? Are you waiting for the server to reply? Like how's the timings and like the caching and stuff like that versus like a search API that Nick was thinking about?
Yeah. So currently it's pretty simple. There is a request sent to the server to get all the files every time we open the quick open palette. And it's going to do the scan every time. There is not even a caching happening.
Right, but as you're searching, you're doing whatever it was that when you opened it, right?
So when you, yeah, the search is happening all in the front end via the palette. Yeah, but yeah, we could, yeah, I was thinking about what Nick was saying about, you know, bailing out after maybe, I don't know, like 100 milliseconds. Maybe that could be a good trade-off in some cases, yeah, in case like there are like just way too many files. At least you would get like a partial result, like a partial list that you could still search. That could work, but yeah, it sounds a little bit more complex, I guess, to implement, but yeah.
Yeah, if
But
this
yeah,
was if it was implemented as like an indexer in the background, that
Yeah, yeah.
something used the contents API
Yes.
to build up the list. And then we've talked before about the capability of watching files in the backend, right? I don't remember what the state of that ended up being. I think that's still a third party extension, right? It's not a core feature.
Well, I mean, the main advantage currently with this quick open extension is just very simple, but it doesn't make sense to scan the whole, the whole disk every time you open the widget, because we're not expecting many files to be created. I mean, in some cases, yes, but it sounds like there could be something smarter to be done there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so implementation details aside, if you had something that was kept the cache on the server side, then your response time will be whatever is client to server, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So, but that would be hopefully quick enough for the user experience. But if you had a search API that could still use that same index if it had it. If you're doing a search API, you probably want to implement an indexer at some point, especially if you're doing file contents. But that's, of course, an implementation detail and depends on what to optimize and stuff. But
yeah, I mean, the cheapest search that you can possibly get is SQLite. That's the cheapest full text search that's going to have port stemming and all that good stuff, and it's implemented more times than anywhere else. So, like as a base code, if you were going to have something persistent that wasn't in RAM, a SQLite table is a great place to start. And it can even do JSON-y kind of search things as well. But
yeah, it is important to of course highlight that the first implementation doesn't need to be fully optimized. It just needs to be have APIs that are designed in a way that allows you to optimize in the future, right?
Sure, but like I'm going to write my search index out to files on disk, or I'm going to write my search index out to JSON on disk, or something like that. Like,
yeah,
then you got to now re-implement port stemming and all that you would get for free from FTS compiled into Python's SQLite.
I'm just saying if you can agree on the API, then anybody who has meanings of how to optimize it can do that as a side discussion.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. There is not a great standard for a REST-based search API. You can go and use one from Elasticsearch, or you can use one from whatever, but it's not really a standard. The only standard sort of is WebDAV. Oh, let's not open that can. But I mean, that's the right thing, but it doesn't. It specifies a grammar by saying you can specify a grammar. So you would have this whole capability-based thing that would have to know back and forth. But I don't know. And SQLite, you could run that in a browser setting as well, which might have advantages in certain situations.
I just wanted to call a time check. We're 23 minutes, 24 minutes into the meeting. Jeremy, do you have a next step?
I'm not sure. I think it depends on whether we would be fine going with like something very simple, not optimized. If it's okay, we can also, always label that endpoint in lab as experimental. I think the main question to answer is, whether we would have time to, do that for 4.5 at the next minor release. Because if we're sure we don't have time for that, then I'm okay waiting. It's not like no hurry. We can spend time, agree on the API endpoints and so on. But it's more like if people want this feature, then I think we probably need to agree what's like the path of least resistance to get it into lab.
if we have the ability to do mark things as experimental, then I would like, I don't want to hold things back to get something good in for some much more comprehensive, better thing, but that will take a lot more time and alignment if we can get something experimental in to start testing the waters and iterating on it.
Yeah, having something be suboptimally implemented is also a good way to have people come out of the woodwork to help make it more optimal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if we ship that just like it is, right now, there will be people coming and say that it's too slow for them, and they will come and complain maybe.
Yeah, but that's having a feature. It's a discussion whether you ship a feature when it's not perfect, right?
Yeah,
Whether
yeah.
people's first impression is more important to you than having them try it out. But yeah, it's I think the main, from the API point of view, that once we lock it down, it's just like, do we do a search API or do we do the give me all the files things, or do we do both? I think that's the only kind of the decision that needs to be made.
But don't you have to do both? Isn't the index a predicate for the search? Like, you need to know where everything's going.
Yeah, but you might not need to expose the index as like a give me everything in the index as an API. That could just be a server-side thing that is running.
So one of the things I was thinking about while you guys were talking about this is like the only way I could get to this file opener is through the command palette right now. Is that correct?
It's actually a different palette. It's not the same as the command palette, but yeah, it's
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much this.
I'm wondering, is there any value in like having these things even exposed as like little magics or something like that? Like, is there like a programmatic way I might want to use some of this stuff? Like, I programmatically use search a lot. Like, search for these notebooks and find them and go and open them or make them the next cell or something like that. That would be kind of common. I'm wondering if there's like another typographic way to expose this so that you could get different kind of insight, because otherwise it's kind of like a hidden feature, right? Because like on like VS Code, this would be in the command palette just with a different leading character. Instead of like a colon, it would be a greater than sign. So it still sounds like discovery is a little bit challenging, and exposing some other API somewhere might be a nice way to get some more eyeballs on it.
Yeah.
Currently,
I mean,
it's.
sorry, go for
Yeah.
it. My bad.
I was going to say currently, it's just giving a list of files, but I was thinking like there is a search replace extension in Contrib, I think, but I don't remember exactly how it works. Like I think it's maybe just using a different tool on the server directly to search content. But I was trying to see if that could be useful for that extension as well, but I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe I don't know if people have tried that one before. Search replace, I think it's called.
Yeah, I mean, once you get inside the kernel, then all bets are off. Because now you're not necessarily in the same file system or anything like that. So yeah, I think anytime you talk about one of these big swing features, talking about it in the kernel at the same time that you're talking about it in the GUI is amazing. So if there was a portable thing that, I love some rip grep. If there was a portable thing that could aggregate from multiple sources, worked online, worked on the terminal, that's magnificent. And then you can play with kernels or with widgets.
Mike?
I just wanted to quickly share my screen to kind of bring this discussion back to the tabs and running sessions that we have. So there is already another way to search for some files. I wonder, like this is very like keyboard navigable. I can reopen recently closed things. So this is Control-Alt-A. I wonder if a search for like quick open could also be integrated with this from the QX. Like where do we want to put it? Do we want to have a single command palette as in VS Code, or do we want to have 3 of them or 2 of them? Like usually this could be like just a different default filtering mode. Just throwing this up there in case if people have thoughts.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, if we have too many ways to search for files, I agree it could be confusing. I haven't looked at how this could integrate with the thing that you just showed. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, why not?
So it sounds like the next step is look at the integration with the tool that Mike has, and Nick is really proposing putting that same sort of thing, I think, on the launcher. So it's like front and center, which seems like a really natural place for it as well.
I think it changes kind of the perspective nicely in a way, right? Because like for a while, Jupyter's like, hey, let's figure out how we make this application to get people to write notebooks. And the search perspective is, hey, we did a good job of getting people to write notebooks. Now they have too many. Like, I don't hate the notebook. I hate notebooks because I have too many now. You know, so like being able to like manage like too much and all that entropy will be really helpful. I think it's like a recognition of it working.
Jeremy, do you have enough to like move forward? Can we move on to Ian?
Yeah, let's move on. Yeah, thanks all for talking about this.
Hi everyone. So I've been giving regular updates on the status of subshells, primarily so they're written in some notes somewhere so people not coming to these meetings can check on the status of things. So it shouldn't take long. We're very close to the IPyKernel 7 release with experimental support for subshells, currently 2 blockers. One, there's some more flaky tests in JupyterLab, which I've narrowed down to being a problem with the debugger in IPyKernel. We were never intending to get the debugger working with new subshells, but the existing main shell, the debugger still has to work. Otherwise, it's obviously a big problem. I haven't managed to reproduce any problems in like real human usage, but CI running stuff really quickly. I'm getting some timing related issues. As always, it comes down to multiple threads accessing 0MQ sockets in a slightly inappropriate way. Anyway, so I'm still working on that, but that's the only real functional change I need to make. Second blocker, there needs to be a new IPy NPR release, but I believe I have all the rights to do that myself, so I guess I will get on with that later in the week. So that's it, and so hopefully, yeah, I'll fix the IPyKernel bug. We can retry it in lab, check that CI becomes a bit more stable. Probably I'll have to do a new pre-release, but then we're looking at the full release soon.
Is there a call to action for us? Like test the pre-release or something?
No,
Okay.
not at all. No, I'm conscious that not many kernels people sort of attend the Thursday meeting or this meeting, so I'm trying to make sure it's at least written down in the MD notes, and I know that people sometimes look at that, so that when I break the world, at least there's a there's a history of what I've done and in what order and why it's justified.
And what time frame are you thinking? Like weeks? Or a month?
Yeah, I mean, my plan was to release this week, but we found this bug just before I went on holiday for the past 2 weeks, so I'm slightly snowed under. But I mean, if all goes well, next week, yeah, I mean, like really soon. I mean, I'm giving a talk at JupyterCon on this, so it has to be working, and people have to have used it by then. So yeah, thank you. That's me done. Yeah, it doesn't hopefully need any comments from anybody. We can probably move on.
I think I'm next on the agenda. I just wanted to call out real quickly 3 announcements to make sure it's getting out. The community call, Rosio is helping manage that, organizing that for tomorrow. Rosio, did you want to say anything about it?
Yeah, so I'll just mention that we do have a few signups, but there's plenty of room for additional people to join and give a short presentation on anything that you think might be great to share with the rest of the community. Yeah, and then preferably we would like to see those that want to present signed up before the call. But there might be also some time to have like a small short update. Yeah, if it becomes last minute, there's also that opportunity to kind of just share a quick update. But we do want to hopefully see signups before tomorrow.
Ian, here's another channel for you to tell the world about coming changes that could break everything and could make people's lives a lot better, for example. And it's right during the time of our normal server and kernels meeting. So there's like no difference in schedule.
I think that depends on if I still have a catastrophe tomorrow or if I fixed it.
Fair enough. I also just wanted to call out the Jupyter workshops, the community workshops, CFP. This is the old Jupyter workshops program. We've had the CFP open for a few weeks now. It's open until Sunday. If there's a workshop that you are thinking would be nice to go to or to organize, I'm happy to brainstorm. Rosio is also on the community building committee. I think she'd be happy to meet with you, or you know, be part of a helping people to think about workshops. And there's several other members of the community building committee. We're all here to help you to flesh out proposals or to give input and feedback on potential proposals. These are funding for meeting a dozen, 2 dozen people for a couple of days on a high impact strategic approach. I believe that as of yesterday, we had 1 workshop proposal in. So if it's a pretty good workshop proposal, it has a high chance of being funded right now. So anyway, please put in your proposals. And the CFP is open until Sunday. And separate from that is a different CFP for funding proposals from the Jupyter Foundation. So a link to the blog post here. It's open until September 28th, which is still a few weeks away. The idea here is we have funds in the Jupyter Foundation. We want to spend them in impactful ways. Help us to see impactful ways to spend this funding. The blog post goes a little bit more into the focus areas that the Jupyter Foundation has. Again, Chris Holgraff offered to brainstorm with anybody about a proposal. I'm happy to brainstorm with anybody about a proposal. There's active discussions on Zulip around these things. This is funding. We want to be fairly ambitious about trying an experiment of opening up proposals to the community. We aim to spend at least $225,000 on proposals. We aim to have 2 to 3 proposals at least funded. We really want to figure out how to make impact in the community from these foundation funds. So bring your ideas, write a proposal. It's a fairly lightweight template, I think, for writing a proposal. I'm happy to brainstorm with anybody. Chris Holgraff is happy to brainstorm with anybody. There's other people willing to work with people on proposals. Yeah, look at the blog post. That's it for my announcements.
And I wanted to quickly mention, I mentioned this during the last week's call. Also wanted to mention this as a kind of follow-up message to previous message what Jason said, that I personally, if someone would organize something, I would definitely be open to be available as a resource or as a participant. I'm sure that other contributors would also be open to participate if it makes sense, right? For example, on Zoom, like virtually as a technical support or whatever. So yeah, would be nice to have something. Okay, so what's next on the agenda?
I think you're up next, Andrew. Yeah.
Sorry.
I think you had an item as well.
Oh, yep,
To discuss.
Yeah, I would be happy to present it. So let me share my screen also, maybe. 1 second. So I wanted to ask if potentially taking into account that there are people from the server call, I thought it might be a good opportunity of discussing one technical aspect of this PR. So Jeremy worked on this beautiful PR that, let me just quickly show it for context. Right, adds ability to display help for notebook at like the bottom frame, kind of like in B classic, and enables this behavior as a default behavior. So I had one comment that I wanted to discuss is that it's implemented by intercepting and mutating the kernel messages. So what I understand, like if you mutate it in one place, it gets mutated for all other components that would receive the message. So, and based on my research, it's not done anywhere else in the code base. So I thought it's probably problematic, but I wanted to discuss maybe this now.
It's probably problematic, yes. Yeah, thanks for reviewing. I wanted to get back to that soon, but haven't got the time yet. But yeah, it's so yeah, I was playing around with this. So since we released Notebook 7, we've been missing this pager thing that was part of the classic notebook, and people liked that. And the contextual help in JupyterLab is not exactly the same. So it's like not exactly the same UX. Doesn't stick around if you move the cursor. So that's why I wanted to give that a try, and all of the logic to look at the payload for the pager data happens, I think, in the cells package in lab. And I think it's just checking the message and inlining the data directly in the cell, which is why I wanted to try this deleting the content before it reaches the cell output. But yeah, it probably has some side effects. I haven't checked. Yeah, I think you suggested looking at the outputs. Maybe that would work. I haven't tried looking at this.
Yeah, that's actually the other thing, because I wasn't even sure that it is problematic. So thanks for confirming that. So something that I thought, and other topic of the potential discussion, if someone has any inputs, like an alternative method to implement that, and watching the cell output model changes. Yeah.
But then problematic, yeah, it's mostly just removing information, but yeah, it could be annoying for sure. Also, like for someone just watching messages going through. Yeah, but it's not like removing, actual outputs. Is what it is, an output here. Yeah, maybe I will try. I can try. Otherwise, if you want to try as well, feel free. But otherwise, I will try to get back to that. So see if there is like another way to do it.
Yeah, I also wasn't 100% clear on if mutating the kernel message in that manner is problematic. It seemed like, based on just, like my hunches and understanding, but yeah, that's why I wanted to discuss it now.
Can you really succinctly describe exactly what it's changing about the kernel message?
Information about the pager data. So typically, we do the question mark to get the doc strings. It removes that so that the output doesn't render it, and instead we render it somewhere else in the down area to mimic the classic notebook behavior. Yeah, I haven't checked the classic notebook implementation actually. Maybe, yeah. Well, they were not rendering it as part of the outputs in the first place, so they probably didn't have to delete anything from the message. So, yeah, was working on that felt a little bit weird sometimes because it felt like going like it's like a workaround, you know, trying to work around what is supposed to be happening, because the design is a little bit different in lab compared to classic notebook. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you're going to do a little bit more investigation into how it's done in the classic notebook, and if there's an easy way to get this effect without having to change the message.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point that while it is like an information, it's not right, not the cell output, it's information about the functions in the cell and in the cell output. So I'd say if it's the only way to implement it, it's better to have it definitely than not have it, right?
Maybe it could be information that we could add to the output if it isn't currently there. But yeah, I have no idea how disruptive that would be. So.
But yeah, I would be super happy to give that another round of review, or yeah, like even look, discuss it together. Yeah, let's stay in touch on that. But I think the discussion on this is done. We can continue to the next point.
Thanks everyone. That is I believe that's the end of the agenda that will be on the record. So I will go ahead and stop the recording. Thanks for joining.